My daughter-in-law hired a hitman, so I faked my death. At my funeral, her face went pale when she felt me tap her shoulder and whisper, "Hello, Nicole." Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. I wasn't supposed to be home that evening. That's the only reason I'm alive to tell this story. I'd gone to my church's women's committee meeting, but halfway through I realized I'd left my phone at home. At 68 years old, I still felt naked without it. A habit from my decades as a federal prosecutor when I needed to be reachable at all times. So I excused myself, drove the 10 minutes back to my house in the Cascade Heights neighborhood of Atlanta, and let myself in quietly through the front door. That's when I heard my daughter-in-law Nicole's voice coming from my study. The door was slightly ajar, light spilling out into the hallway. I should have announced myself. Should have called out that I was home. But something in Nicole's tone, low, urgent, secretive, made me pause. Made me move quietly toward that door and listen. "I need this done within 2 weeks," Nicole was saying into her phone. "She's healthy. Could live another 20 years. I can't wait that long." A pause while she listened to whoever was on the other end. "How much?" "50,000, that's insane." Another pause. Fine, but it has to look like an accident. A burglary gone wrong? A car accident? Something, nothing that traces back to me." My blood turned to ice. I positioned myself where I could see through the crack in the door. Nicole was pacing, phone pressed to her ear, completely unaware I was 15 feet away. "Half now, half when it's done. I'll wire the money tomorrow. You have a photo of her? I'll send one. Her name is Evelyn Morrison. She lives alone. Predictable schedule. Should be easy." I stopped breathing. She was talking about me. Nicole continued, her voice cold and businesslike. "Once she's gone, Marcus inherits everything. $3 million. We pay off our debts, buy the house we actually want, and finally live the life we deserve instead of waiting for some old woman to die naturally." She paused, listening. "Yes, I'm sure. Do it soon. Make it clean. I'll wire the first 25,000 tomorrow." She hung up. I backed away from the door silently, my heart hammering so hard I thought she might hear it. Moved quickly back through the house, out the front door into my car. I sat in the driveway for a full minute, hands shaking on the steering wheel. My daughter-in-law had just hired someone to take my life. For money. For my money. I started the car and drove around the block, parked 2 streets over and tried to think clearly. Tried to process what I'd just heard. After 20 minutes I drove back home, parked normally, and walked in making noise this time. "Hello? Anyone here?" Nicole emerged from my study, smiling brightly. "Mom, Evelyn, I didn't know you'd be back so soon. I just stopped by to drop off those books you wanted to borrow." She held up 3 paperback novels I'd mentioned wanting to read. I smiled back at her. The same warm smile I'd given her for the past 6 years since she married my son Marcus. "That's so thoughtful of you, Nicole. Thank you, sweetheart." "Of course. That's what family does. We take care of each other." The hypocrisy was breathtaking. After she left, I sat in my living room for 2 hours thinking. Not panicking, not crying, just thinking. Because I'm not just any 68-year-old widow living alone. I'm Dr. Evelyn Morrison, retired federal prosecutor. I spent 35 years with the United States Attorney's Office in Atlanta. And in those 35 years I prosecuted over 200 federal cases, including more than 50 cases of conspiracy to commit violent acts, racketeering and murder for hire. I know exactly how these crimes work. I know what evidence is needed to prosecute them. I know how informants are flipped, how undercover operations are run, how wire evidence is gathered. I literally wrote training materials for the FBI on building murder for hire cases. And Nicole had just tried to hire someone to take my life, not knowing that I'm probably one of the most qualified people in the entire state of Georgia to recognize and prosecute exactly this type of offense. That was her first mistake. Her second mistake would be underestimating what I was willing to do about it. I picked up my phone and called my brother Raymond. He answered on the second ring. "Evelyn, everything okay? I need your help, Ray. And I need you to keep this confidential for now." Raymond is 70 years old, 2 years older than me. He spent 30 years as an FBI special agent in the Violent Crimes Division before retiring 5 years ago. We've always been close, and he knows me well enough to hear the seriousness in my voice. What's going on? Nicole just hired someone to take my life. I overheard her on the phone arranging it. $50,000. She wants it to look like an accident or a burglary. Silence. Then are you safe right now? Yes. She doesn't know I heard. She has no idea I was in the house. Evelyn, you need to call the police. No, not yet. Ray, I'm not calling local police to handle this. I'm calling you because I want to do this right. I want a federal murder-for-hire case that sends Nicole to prison for 25 years. And I need FBI involvement to make that happen. Another pause. Tell me exactly what you heard. I recounted the entire conversation word for word. The benefit of decades as a prosecutor, I knew how to retain and recall evidence. When I finished, Raymond let out a long breath. Murder for hire is a federal offense. FBI has jurisdiction. I'm retired, but I still have contacts. Let me make some calls. In the meantime, don't confront Nicole. Don't change your routine. Act completely normal. I spent 35 years prosecuting these cases. I know the protocol. I know you do, but Evelyn, this is different. This is your family. Your daughter-in-law. Are you absolutely certain you want to pursue this? She tried to arrange my demise for money. Raymond, she stopped being family the moment she made that phone call. Now she's just another criminal, and I'm going to make sure she pays for it. Let me tell you about my career so you understand what I'm capable of. I graduated from Howard University Law School in 1982, one of 15 black women in my class. I joined the United States Attorney's Office in Atlanta in 1983, right out of law school. For the next 35 years, I prosecuted federal crimes, organized crime, racketeering, drug trafficking, violent crimes, conspiracy cases. I specialized in RICO cases, Racketeer Influenced in Corrupt Organizations Act, complex conspiracies involving multiple defendants, multiple crimes, extensive evidence, and murder-for-hire cases. Those were always the most clear-cut in some ways. Someone wants someone else gone. They hire someone to do it. Money changes hands. Evidence is usually strong if you catch it in time. I prosecuted 53 murder-for-hire cases in my career. 151 of them, the 2 I lost, were due to procedural issues, not lack of evidence. I knew every element of the crime, every evidentiary requirement, every defense strategy. I'd worked with FBI undercover agents dozens of times, knew how they operated, knew how to build cases that would survive any defense challenge. And now all that expertise was going to be used to save my own life and prosecute my own daughter-in-law. I also needed to understand why Nicole wanted me gone. Money was the obvious motive. She'd said as much on the phone. But I needed specifics. I spent that evening going through financial records. My estate is worth approximately $3.2 million. My house in Cascade Heights, fully paid off, $900,000. Retirement accounts from my years as a federal prosecutor, $1.8 million. Life insurance policy, $500,000. My will, drafted 3 years ago after my husband David died, leaves everything to my son Marcus. He's my only child. Simple estate. No complications. If I died, Marcus would inherit everything. And Marcus is married to Nicole. I also still had access to some of Marcus and Nicole's financial information from 4 years ago when I co-signed their mortgage to help them buy their first house. What I found was worse than I expected. They were drowning in debt. Credit cards, $180,000, multiple cards, all maxed out, barely making minimum payments. Business loans, $200,000 from Nicole's failed boutique that she'd opened 3 years ago and closed after 18 months. Car loans, $90,000. They were leasing a Range Rover and a Porsche, both far beyond what they could afford. Personal loans, $50,000 from what looked like predatory lenders charging astronomical interest rates. Total debt, $520,000. Marcus makes about $95,000 a year as a marketing director at a tech company. Nicole doesn't work. She claims she's building her brand as a lifestyle influencer on Instagram. She has about 3,000 followers and makes exactly $0 from it. They were facing bankruptcy, foreclosure, financial ruin. But if I died, they'd inherit $3.2 million. That would pay off $520,000 in debt and leave them with $2.68 million. Problem solved. Except for the minor issue of arranging my demise to get that money. Nicole had decided I needed to be gone. Soon. And she was willing to pay $50,000 to make it happen. 48 hours after my call to Raymond, I was sitting in a conference room at the FBI's Atlanta field office. With me were Raymond, FBI Special Agent Marcus Chen, and Assistant Special Agent in Charge Jennifer Williams. Agent Chen was about 40, sharp-eyed, serious. He specialized in violent crimes and murder-for-hire cases. Azsake Williams was in her early 50s, with the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd spent decades in federal law enforcement. Miss Morrison, Agent Chen began, your brother explained the situation. We take murder-for-hire extremely seriously. If what you overheard is accurate, we can build a federal case. I'm a retired federal prosecutor, I said calmly. I spent 35 years building these cases. I know exactly what you need. Recorded conversations, wire transfers, meetings with the person hired, evidence of payment, overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. Azsake Williams smiled slightly. Raymond mentioned you prosecuted murder-for-hire cases. 53 of them. I know how this works. Agent Chen leaned forward. Here's what I propose. We identify who Nicole contacted, based on the conversation you overheard. It sounds like she reached out to someone with a criminal background. Someone she found through some connection. Can you trace her phone records? I asked. With a warrant? Yes. And based on what you've told us, we have probable cause for that warrant. We'll identify who she called. If it's someone we can work with, flip them or insert an undercover agent. We document everything, record her communications, capture the money transfer, have our person meet with her to discuss details. And then we let her believe it's going forward. We stage or we make it appear that the plan succeeded. She thinks she's gotten away with it. Then we arrest her with overwhelming evidence. I nodded slowly. I want something more. They looked at me. I don't just want her arrested quietly at her home. I want her at my funeral. I want her giving the eulogy, crying fake tears, playing the grieving daughter-in-law role. And then I want to walk in while she's standing at that podium and reveal that I'm alive. In front of everyone. Right before you arrest her. Agent Chen's eyes widened slightly. Azsake Williams actually laughed. That's actually brilliant. Maximum impact, public humiliation. And we'd have her reaction on camera, consciousness of guilt. Miss Morrison, you've clearly thought about this. I've prosecuted these cases for 35 years. I know what works. And I know that Nicole's reaction when she sees me alive, that shock, that panic will be powerful evidence of her guilty knowledge. It's unconventional, Agent Chen said, but it's not entrapment, it's not illegal, and honestly, it would make for an incredibly strong case. Then let's do it. Within a week, the FBI had identified Nicole's contact. His name was Vincent Cruz. 45 years old, with a criminal record including assault, weapons charges, and suspected involvement in several violent incidents, though he'd never been convicted of anything serious. The FBI brought Vincent in for questioning on an unrelated weapons charge they'd been holding. Agent Chen made him an offer. We know Nicole Morrison contacted you about taking out her mother-in-law. We have phone records. You're facing 20 years in federal prison for murder-for-hire conspiracy. Or you cooperate, you wear a wire. You record your conversations with Nicole. You testify and you get complete immunity. Vincent wasn't stupid. He knew a good deal when he heard one. What do you need me to do? We need you to meet with Nicole. Discuss the details, get her to confirm who the target is, when she wants it done, how she wants it done, and confirm the payment. Record everything, then we'll stage the incident, and see if she pays the second half of the fee. And I walk free? You walk free. But if you warn her, if you deviate from the plan even slightly, you're going to federal prison for 25 years minimum. Are we clear? Crystal clear. Vincent became an FBI informant that day. A week later, Vincent called Nicole. The FBI had him wired with state-of-the-art recording equipment. They also had a surveillance team positioned around the coffee shop where they'd agreed to meet. I watched from the FBI van a block away, listening through headphones as the conversation unfolded. Vincent's voice. So we need to talk about the job. Can't discuss details over the phone. Nicole's voice, nervous but trying to sound casual. Right. Okay. So, can you do it? Yeah. But I need to be clear on the specifics. You want Evelyn Morrison gone. You want it to look like an accident or a burglary. When do you want this done? Soon. This week if possible. She's usually home alone in the evenings. Predictable schedule. Should be easy. How do you want it done specifically? I don't care about the details, break-in, mugging, car accident, just make it look natural, nothing that points back to me. And payment. You said 50,000, half up front, half after it's done. Yes. I already wired 25,000 to the account number you gave me. You'll get the other 25,000 once it's finished. And you're absolutely sure about this? Once I do this, there's no going back. No changing your mind. There was a pause. Then Nicole's voice, cold and calculated. I'm sure. She's old. She's had a good life, and frankly, my husband and I need that inheritance now, not in 20 years when she finally passes away naturally. $3 million. That's what we get when she's gone. That solves all our problems. What's in it for you besides the money? Freedom, no more debt, no more struggling. The life I actually deserve instead of this middle-class existence. Every word was recorded. Every admission captured in crystal clear audio. Nicole had just confessed to murder-for-hire conspiracy on tape, recorded by an FBI informant. The case was already airtight, and we hadn't even gotten to the staged incident yet. When Vincent left that meeting, he went straight back to the FBI. Agent Chen played me the recording. I listened to my daughter-in-law casually discussing my demise like she was ordering furniture. Talking about how I'd had a good life as justification for ending it prematurely. Discussing the $3 million she'd inherit. I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just cold professional detachment. This was evidence. This was a case. This was what I'd built my career on. Except, this time, I was the intended victim. We have everything we need to arrest her right now, Agent Chen said. No, I said firmly. We proceed with the plan. We stage my death. We see if she pays the second half. We let her think she's gotten away with it, and then we take her down at the funeral. Miss Morrison, you're sure about this? It's going to be emotionally difficult. Your son will think you're gone. Your friends will grieve. And then you'll have to reveal it was all staged. I'm sure. Marcus will understand when he learns the truth, and my friends will forgive me. But Nicole needs to believe she succeeded. She needs to think she's won, and then she needs to have that victory ripped away in the most public, humiliating way possible. Isaac Williams nodded. All right, let's plan the operation. The staging of my demise was elaborate and required coordination across multiple agencies. The FBI worked with the Atlanta Police Department, Grady Memorial Hospital, and the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office. Everyone involved was briefed on the operation and sworn to secrecy. The plan was simple but required precise execution. 1 week after Nicole's meeting with Vincent, on a Tuesday evening I would go for my usual evening walk around the neighborhood. I walked every evening at 7 o'clock. Same route, same time, completely predictable. Vincent, under FBI supervision, would approach me at the corner of Cascade and Fairburn. There would be a staged confrontation that would look like a mugging or assault. I would collapse. Vincent would flee. A neighbor, actually an undercover FBI agent, would witness the whole thing and call 911. An ambulance would arrive. EMTs briefed on the operation would take me to Grady Memorial Hospital. The ER doctor, someone who'd worked with the FBI on previous operations, would pronounce me deceased from blunt force trauma and cardiac arrest. The medical examiner would issue a death certificate, all official, all documented, all completely fabricated. In reality, I'd be fine and in FBI protective custody at a safe house outside the city. But to everyone else, Marcus, Nicole, my friends, my church community, Evelyn Morrison would be gone. Taken during an evening walk, a tragedy, a senseless act of violence. Tuesday evening arrived. I put on my walking shoes and my light jacket, same as I did every evening. The FBI surveillance team was in position, cameras recording from multiple angles. Vincent was waiting at the predetermined corner, wired with audio equipment, looking nervous despite the fact that this was all staged. I walked my normal route, said hello to neighbors. I passed, acted completely normal. At exactly 7:14 p.m. I reached the corner of Cascade and Fairburn. Vincent approached me. "Give me your purse," he said loudly enough for the hidden microphones to pick up. I screamed. A genuine sound of fear that wasn't entirely acting. Vincent grabbed my arm. I struggled. He pushed me. I fell to the ground, hitting the pavement hard enough to look real but controlled enough not to actually injure myself. Vincent ran. The undercover FBI agent playing the role of concerned neighbor rushed over. "Oh my God! Someone call 911. I saw everything. That man attacked her. I lay on the ground, motionless, eyes closed. Within 4 minutes an ambulance arrived, driven by EMTs who were part of the operation. They loaded me onto a stretcher, started fake CPR, and rushed me to Grady Memorial. At the hospital I was taken to a private room. The ER doctor, Dr. Patricia Williams, who'd worked with federal law enforcement for years, examined me briefly. Then she stepped out and made the official pronouncement to the nurse station, loud enough to be overheard and documented. Time of death, 7:47 p.m. Cause blunt force trauma to the head, cardiac arrest. Contact the family. I was then quietly moved to a back exit where an FBI vehicle was waiting. They drove me to a safe house in Marietta, about 30 minutes outside Atlanta. And that's where I stayed for the next 6 days while my own funeral was planned. The news of my passing spread quickly. Marcus received the call from the hospital and was devastated, absolutely destroyed. He had no idea about Nicole's plan. He was genuinely grieving his mother. Nicole, on the other hand, had to pretend to be shocked. The FBI had tapped her phone, so we heard the call when Marcus called her from the hospital. "Nicole, it's Mom. She's gone. Someone attacked her during her walk. She didn't make it." Nicole's response, caught on the FBI recording: "Oh my God. Marcus, no. What happened?" She was acting, playing the role of shocked, grieving daughter-in-law. But I could hear it in her voice, the lack of genuine surprise. She'd been expecting this call. Over the next few days, as I sat in the FBI safe house, I watched through surveillance feeds as Nicole took control of the funeral planning. Marcus was too grief-stricken to handle the details, so Nicole stepped up. "I'll take care of everything. Honey," she told him. "Your mom deserves a beautiful service. I'll make sure it's perfect." She planned an elaborate funeral at Mount Zion Baptist Church, where I'd been a member for 20 years. A church that could hold 300 people. Flowers. A printed program. A soloist to sing "His Eyes on the Sparrow." And Nicole insisted on giving the eulogy herself. "I want to honor her," Nicole told Marcus. "She was like a mother to me." This was a lie. Nicole and I had barely tolerated each other. She'd always been polite to my face but distant. But now she was going to stand up and deliver a eulogy full of fake sentiments and manufactured grief. The funeral was scheduled for the following Saturday, 6 days after my staged passing. Meanwhile, the FBI was monitoring Nicole's every move. 2 days after my death, Vincent contacted Nicole. "It's done. I saw the news. Now I need the second payment." Nicole's response, captured on the FBI tap: "I'll wire it after the funeral, once everything settles down and doesn't look suspicious." "No, you said half after. I want it now." "Fine. I'll send it tomorrow." The next day, Nicole wired $25,000 to the account the FBI had set up for Vincent. Total payment $50,000. Documented wire transfers, recorded conversations, staged incident, payment received. The case was perfect, absolutely airtight. "We can arrest her now," Agent Chen told me at the safe house. "We have everything." "No," I said again. "We wait for the funeral. I want to walk in while she's giving that eulogy." "Miss Morrison, I have to ask, is this about justice or revenge?" I looked at him steadily. "It's about both. She tried to have me eliminated for money. She deserves to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But she also deserves to experience the shock and humiliation of realizing her plan failed in the most public way possible. That's not revenge, that's consequences." Saturday arrived, the day of my funeral. I got dressed in a navy blue suit. Did my hair and makeup. Looked exactly like myself. Alive, healthy, professional. The FBI drove me to Mount Zion Baptist Church in an unmarked vehicle. We arrived 30 minutes after the service had started. I waited in the vehicle while Agent Chen confirmed that Nicole was at the podium giving her eulogy. Then he gave me the signal. I walked toward the church, flanked by 2 FBI agents. The church was packed. Over 300 people had come to pay their respects. My friends, colleagues from my years at the U.S. Attorney's Office, people from my church, members of my community, all there to mourn Evelyn Morrison. Except Evelyn Morrison wasn't gone. I could hear Nicole's voice through the church doors, amplified by the microphone. Evelyn Morrison was more than just my mother-in-law. She was my friend, my mentor, the strongest woman I ever knew. The lies were breathtaking. I pushed open the back doors of the church. Every head turned. The church went completely silent. I could see Marcus in the front row. His face went white. His mouth opened but no sound came out. "Mom?" he whispered. I walked down the center aisle. Slowly. Calmly. Every eye on me. People gasped. Someone screamed. Someone else said, "Praise Jesus." At the podium, Nicole had frozen. Her face had gone from composed to sheet white in an instant. I walked right up to her, reached out and tapped her shoulder, leaned in close to the microphone so everyone could hear. Whispered, "Hello, Nicole." Nicole stumbled backward, knocking the podium mic with her elbow. You're gone. I saw the news. The hospital said you." The hospital said, what you were supposed to believe, that I passed away from injuries sustained during a mugging. The mugging you paid for. The church erupted in shocked murmurs. Marcus stood up. "Mom, what's going on? We thought you..." I turned to address everyone. "I apologize for the deception, but 6 weeks ago, I overheard Nicole hiring someone to end my life. $50,000 for my demise. She wanted it to look like an accident or a burglary." More gasps. People looking at Nicole with horror. "I'm a retired federal prosecutor. I spent 35 years with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I knew exactly what to do. I contacted the FBI. We ran an undercover operation. FBI agents appeared at the exits. Agent Chen, Asak Williams and 4 others. Nicole tried to move toward the side door. 2 agents blocked her path. I continued. The person Nicole hired was actually an FBI informant. We recorded her meetings with him, recorded her discussing the details of how she wanted me gone. Then we staged my passing to see if she would complete the payment. She did. $25,000 wired 3 days ago, for a total of $50,000 to arrange my demise. I pulled out my phone and played the audio recording. Nicole's voice filled the church through the sound system. "I'm sure. She's old. She's had a good life. And frankly, my husband and I need that inheritance now. Not in 20 years when she finally passes away naturally. $3 million. That's what we get when she's gone." The church was dead silent. Marcus was staring at Nicole with an expression of absolute horror. "You tried to have my mother taken from us? For money?" Nicole was shaking her head frantically. "No, this is insane. I didn't. I would never. Marcus, you know I wouldn't." "We have everything on tape, Nicole," I said calmly. "Your phone call arranging it. Your meeting with Vincent discussing the details. Your wire transfers. All of it documented. All of it admissible in federal court." Agent Chen stepped forward, badge in hand. "Nicole Morrison, you are under arrest for murder for hire conspiracy under Title 18 United States Code Section 1958. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Handcuffs clicked around Nicole's wrists. She was screaming now. "This is entrapment. I was set up. This isn't legal." I looked at her calmly, my prosecutor voice coming back automatically. "Entrapment requires law enforcement to induce someone to commit a crime they weren't already predisposed to commit. You contacted Vincent Cruz on your own initiative. You offered money. You specified the target me. You detailed how you wanted it done. You paid $50,000. That's not entrapment. Nicole, that's murder for hire. A federal offense. And you're looking at a minimum of 20 years in federal prison. You can't do this. You're supposed to be gone." "No, Nicole, you're supposed to be smarter. You tried to arrange the demise of a retired federal prosecutor who spent 35 years sending people like you to prison. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That I wouldn't know exactly how to build a case against you?" FBI agents led her toward the exit. Still handcuffed. Still screaming about how unfair it all was. Marcus approached me, tears streaming down his face. "Mom, I swear I didn't know. I had no idea she was planning." I pulled him into a hug. "I know, sweetheart. I know you didn't know. This was all Nicole. I thought you were gone. I thought I'd lost you. I'm sorry I put you through that. But I needed Nicole to believe she'd succeeded. Needed her to pay the full amount. Needed her to incriminate herself beyond any possible doubt." Around us, the church was in chaos. People crying, talking, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. I turned to address everyone again. "I apologize for the deception. I know this was shocking, but I needed Nicole to believe her plan had worked. Needed her to complete the payment and incriminate herself fully. Thank you all for coming today, and since we're all here anyway, there's a reception in the fellowship hall. No sense letting all that food go to waste." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Relief. Shock. confusion, but also understanding. I think they understood why I'd done it this way. The FBI took Nicole to the Federal Detention Center in Atlanta. She was charged formally the following Monday. Murder for hire conspiracy under 18 U.S.C. under 1958. Wire fraud for using electronic transfers in furtherance of the crime. Solicitation to commit a crime of violence. The U.S. Attorney's Office prosecuted the case, my former office, which made it somewhat surreal. Many of my old colleagues were still there, and they were eager to handle the prosecution. The trial was 3 months later. I attended every day, sitting in the gallery, watching the case unfold. The evidence was overwhelming. Audio recordings of Nicole hiring Vincent and discussing my demise. Wire transfer records showing $25,000 before and $25,000 after. A total of $50,000. Vincent's testimony under his immunity agreement describing Nicole's cold calculation and specific instructions. Agent Chen's testimony explaining the undercover operation and how they'd staged my passing. My testimony as the intended victim explaining how I'd overheard the initial phone call and contacted the FBI. Nicole's defense attorney tried to argue entrapment. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney David Kim, who'd been one of my mentees when I worked there, demolished that argument. The defendant initiated contact with Vincent Cruz. The defendant offered payment. The defendant specified the victim, her own mother-in-law. The defendant described how she wanted it done, saying it should look like an accident. The defendant paid $50,000. At no point did law enforcement induce or encourage this crime. They simply documented it. That's not entrapment. That's catching a criminal in the act. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing 2 months later, the federal judge was harsh. Ms. Morrison, you attempted to arrange the demise of your mother-in-law for financial gain. $3.2 million in inheritance. You showed no remorse throughout this trial, only anger at being caught. Murder for hire carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years. However, given the calculated nature of this crime, the significant payment involved and your complete lack of remorse, I'm sentencing you to 25 years in federal prison. You will serve at least 85% of that sentence before being eligible for any consideration of release. Nicole was led away, crying, screaming that it wasn't fair. 25 years, she'd be 63 years old before she could even be considered for release. Marcus divorced her immediately. The divorce was uncontested. Nicole signed the papers from federal prison. He was horrified by what she'd done. Heartbroken that the woman he'd married was capable of such calculated evil. But he was also relieved that I was alive. That was 2 years ago. I'm 70 years old now, living peacefully in my home in Cascade Heights. The same home Nicole thought she'd inherit after arranging my demise. I updated my will immediately after Nicole's conviction. Everything still goes to Marcus. He had absolutely nothing to do with Nicole's plan. He's a good man who made a poor choice in a spouse. But I also set up substantial donations to several organizations, the FBI Victim Assistance Fund, legal aid organizations, and domestic violence shelters. My estate is now worth about $3 million. It's grown with careful investments. Nicole will never see a penny of it. I've thrown myself into advocacy work since the trial. I speak at FBI training sessions about murder for hire cases, using my own experience as a teaching example. This is how you build an airtight case, I tell the new agents. This is how you use undercover operations effectively. This is how you document evidence that will survive any defense challenge. I consult with the U.S. Attorney's Office on complex conspiracy cases. I wrote a book about my experience. The Prosecutor's Target, Surviving a Murder for Hire Plot. It became a bestseller and is now used in law schools across the country to teach criminal procedure and conspiracy law. I've appeared on several true crime podcasts and news programs discussing the case, and I teach seminars for law students about federal murder for hire statutes and how to prosecute them effectively. Last month I was invited to speak at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. I stood before a room full of new agent trainees and walked them through my case. Showed them the audio recordings, the wire transfer documentation, the careful planning of the undercover operation. They were riveting, listening to every word. At the end, the young agent raised her hand. Ms. Morrison, when you walked into that church and tapped Nicole's shoulder, what was going through your mind? I thought about that carefully. Honestly. Satisfaction. For 6 weeks Nicole thought she'd gotten away with arranging my demise. She thought she'd inherit millions of dollars. She planned my funeral. She stood at that podium and gave a eulogy full of lies about how much she cared about me. And then I walked in and watched her entire world collapse in front of 300 witnesses. That's justice. Not revenge. Justice. Another agent asked, "Do you regret the elaborate staging, the fake passing, the funeral deception?" Not for a second. A simple arrest at her home wouldn't have had the same impact. Nicole needed to believe she'd succeeded, needed to complete the payment, needed to be caught in the most public, undeniable way possible. And the recording of her reaction when she saw me alive. That shock, that panic, that was powerful evidence of her guilty knowledge. Sometimes justice requires a bit of theater. After the lecture, a woman in her early 60s approached me nervously. "Ms. Morrison, I think my son-in-law might be planning something similar. I've overheard him on the phone talking about life insurance policies, inheritance, accidents. I don't know if I'm being paranoid or if I should be worried." I handed her my card with Agent Chen's contact information on the back. "Call him. Tell him I sent you. Tell him everything you've heard, every suspicion you have. Don't wait. Don't doubt yourself. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And it's always better to be safe and wrong than to ignore your instincts and end up in danger." Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I was afraid people would think I was crazy." "You're not crazy. You're aware. And awareness is what keeps people alive." She left, clutching the card, looking both frightened and relieved. "That's what I do now. I help people recognize the signs. I teach law enforcement how to build these cases. I show the world that elderly people, especially elderly women, are not helpless victims. We have knowledge. We have experience. We have resources. And when someone tries to harm us, we can fight back with intelligence and the full force of the law." Nicole is currently serving her 25-year sentence at FCI Tallahassee, a federal women's prison in Florida. She'll be there for at least another 21 years. 21 years to think about how she tried to arrange my demise for $3 million and ended up with nothing but a prison cell. Marcus has rebuilt his life. He's dating someone new, a kind woman named Patricia who I've met several times and genuinely like. He's working on paying off the debts that he and Nicole accumulated, doing it honestly without looking for shortcuts. We have dinner together every Sunday, and every Sunday he tells me how grateful he is that I'm alive. "I can't believe I almost lost you, Mom," he said last week. "I can't believe Nicole was capable of that." People are capable of terrible things when they want money badly enough, I told him, but they're also capable of terrible mistakes. Nicole underestimated me. She saw an elderly widow living alone and thought I'd be an easy target. She forgot that this elderly widow spent 35 years prosecuting criminals smarter than her. She definitely forgot who she was dealing with. And that was her downfall. Last week, I received a letter. It was from a woman in Ohio who'd read my book. She wrote, "Dear Ms. Morrison, I'm writing to thank you. After reading your book, I recognized the signs in my own life. My nephew had been asking strange questions about my will, my life insurance, my daily routine. Then I overheard him talking about accidents and inheritance. I remembered what you wrote about trusting your instincts. I contacted the FBI. They investigated. My nephew had contacted someone about staging a car accident. Because of your book, because of what you taught me, I'm alive. My nephew is in prison. Thank you for sharing your story. You saved my life." I kept that letter, framed it and hung it in my study. Because that's why I do this work. Not for revenge against Nicole. She's already facing the consequences of her choices. But to help others, to teach people that they don't have to be victims. That knowledge is power, that justice is possible. Nicole tried to have me eliminated for money. Instead, she gave me a purpose. A mission to help others survive the same type of threat. And in a strange way, I'm grateful to her for that. Not grateful that she tried to arrange my demise, that was evil and unforgivable. But grateful that her failure became a teaching moment that has already saved lives and will continue to save lives for years to come. I'm 70 years old. I've survived a murder-for-hire plot. I've prosecuted the person responsible and watched her sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. I've written a book that's helping others recognize and escape similar dangers. And I'm spending my retirement doing exactly what I did for 35 years, fighting for justice. Just from a slightly different angle now. Nicole thought she could eliminate me and take my money. She was wrong on both counts. I'm still here, still fighting, still teaching, still helping. And I'll continue doing this work for as long as I'm able. Because knowledge saves lives. and I have a lot of knowledge to share.